Alrighty. Alcor is pleased to welcome you all to today's webinar. Founded in 2008 and headquartered in California, Alcor Solutions is a global cloud advisory and implementation services company serving clients in multiple geographies including North America, Europe, Japan, and India. Our consultants provide advice to leading businesses on cloud platforms, architecture, enterprise service management, and integrating IT service delivery. Our clients include global Fortune 500 as well as leading organizations in multiple industry verticals. We partner with ServiceNow, Microsoft, BOMGAR, Salesforce, FireEye, Dynatrace, BigPanda, MuleSoft, and Dell. Our ongoing webinar series is designed to inform, enlighten, and start discussions within your own organizations. If you require any additional information after listening to today's webinar, please reach out to us through our website, www.alcortech.com. Today's webinar is also on social media. You can follow, comment, and get regular updates for today's webinar with the hashtag AlcorWebinar. That's hashtag or number sign ALCORWEBINAR. We have time reserved at the end of the webinar for a Q&A, so please feel free to type any questions into the questions section. Today's webinar topic is Achieve the True Value of ITOM in Your Organization, Part 3, Simplifying ITOM Complexity with BigPanda, presented by Robert Mandelbaum and Assaf Resnick. Robert is Alcor's Senior Manager, Technical Consulting, and has over 20 years of IT industry experience that includes physical plant, network engineering, NetWare, Microsoft, and Cisco. Robert's ITOM career began in 1998 when he joined IBM Tivoli. Since then, he has worked with both CA and BMC. Robert's customers have been in the automotive, banking, entertainment, and retail industries, as well as multiple levels of government agencies. He currently is responsible for Alcor's ITOM practice, which includes ServiceNow, as well as a variety of other ITOM technologies. Assaf is CEO and co-founder of BigPanda. As CEO, Assaf leads the BigPanda team in building the world's best solution for automating incident management used by Fortune 500 companies. Prior to BigPanda, Assaf spent 6 years at Sequoia Capital working with early and growth stage company CEOs. I will now turn the webinar over to Robert and Assaf.
Thank you, Jeff, for that great introduction. Welcome, everybody. Our ongoing ITOM webinar series all pretty much starts with the same slides, and it's the same positioning. Alcor is a silver ServiceNow partner, and our services and integrations for our existing customers and our future customers are based around utilizing ServiceNow as the core integration platform to make you successful. We're focusing in this series on IT operations management, and as we move through the ServiceNow maturity model, what we're really trying to get you is into what ServiceNow calls the agility phase, which is directly tied to what you're going to learn about today. So why should you care about all of this? You can read all these clippings, but the net of all of this is outages cost money. If you're not available for your customers, you're not taking in money. If you're not available for your employees, they can't do their job. Nobody can afford to have large outages. Again, we're going to start very basic. What is ITOM? I like to use the analogy that it's the plumbing that feeds in and out of all of your business service management tools, all your events going in, all your automation coming out. So with any automation technology, whether you're building cars or you're automating your environment, you need 3 core things to be successful. There's people, you have them in your environment, they know your business, they know your processes, which are also important, and they have knowledge of the existing technology. technology really at the end of the day is automating the processes that your people are running and have built. And if you take anything away from this trilogy of important pieces, say the people, it falls down. It doesn't work. So this is core to everything that we do as a consulting company with you, our customers, to make you successful. The promise of ITOM, what are we really trying to do? We're trying to increase your ability to achieve service levels, whether they're internal or external. We're trying to cross organizational barriers. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And all of this needs to be automated around best practices. And a lot of what you do to get availability of systems up is you throw people at it. And so now what's happening is you're raising the cost to achieve this. What IT operations management automation is really trying to do is to get you where you need to be and lowering the cost of doing it. So trying to transition IT from being a cost center to a contributor to the bottom line. We're going to look real quickly at a couple different points of view. So what does a CIO care about? We've got one on the phone. You probably can validate a lot of these things. How do I increase my operational efficiency? How do I do more and reduce costs? How do I gain a competitive edge? How do I take all these people and process and tools and allow the business to thrive using that? How do I keep my customers happy? How do I act quickly? How do I maximize agility to go after new opportunities? How do I adapt to changes in the market? And how do I leverage globalization? The world's getting a lot smaller with the internet, as you know, the Internet of Things. How do I leverage that? Now your IT director, CTO, IT manager, whatever title it is, they've got a little different spin. They're being asked by the CIO to deliver on those things that they're trying to do, but they look at it a little differently. Like, how do I lower costs? I'm being told to do more with less, yet I still want to go do new things. I want to invest in people. I want to invest in technology. How do I get there? How do I align the applications with the business imperatives that I'm being told I have to match? How do I, again, stop being a cost center, help the business? How do I adapt to these changes? How do I leverage this worldwide Internet of Things and resources that are available to me and keep the CIO happy and, again, start adding value, right? I'm being told you got to do all this, but you got to do it with less. So now that we've kind of talked a little about the higher level business perspective, what I want to do now is kind of shift to some use cases, and this directly ties to what we're going to learn from BigPanda as we move through. So what we're looking at now is something I find in a lot of customers. This is very common when you have no automation and no real intelligence built into your event and how you management system internally. So in this scenario, an application goes down. What's the next thing that happens? The phone rings. Bunch of people, I can't get to my application. Now the person at the service desk goes ahead and opens up a ticket. What's the very next thing they do? They get on the phone. They call a bunch of people. So right now, what you've got is a lot of specialists. They get together. They kind of point fingers at each other. My Windows is up, my network is up, my Linux is up, my databases are up, whatever it is. And you're just kind of throwing money down the drain in a lot of different areas, right? So you're paying very important, smart, expensive people. They're not doing their normal day job. They're out here trying to fix a problem. And whatever the service that's down is not delivering value to the business. This is really common. I see it all over the place. So now let's start looking at a better way to handle this. If you've been on my other webinars or if you've been around ServiceNow, a lot of other companies do the same type of thing, but what we've got here in the ServiceNow world is called a service map. And what this is a logical organizing of CIs within your CMDB that are organized in a way that you can see how a line of business or a business service is not only connected, but you'll notice you see the little color stripes underneath some of the CIs or some of the components of that line of business or of that service or of that composite application, whatever term you want to use, and that there's something that's alerting and saying that there's something wrong at varying levels, whether it's red, it's really bad, a little less bad of yellow, orange at the top, it's being affected. But now I'm starting to visualize how things are affected in my environment, and I can start making decisions. We're going to up-level that one more, and this is what is called a heat map. And this is basically all my services within my company. And now I can prioritize. I can see what's red, what's green, and I can make business decisions on where I need to send my people, what I need to attack first. It could be what brings in money. It could be time-based. There's a lot of different things that are criteria that you could use to get here. But now that we see where we'd like to get, I'm going to talk a little bit about how do we get there. So the first thing we have to do is start monitoring our resources. In this example, you can see we've got end user events and security events and network events, and you can read the list. It goes on and on and on. This is a lot of monitoring tools. This is a lot of expertise that needs to be in place in order to do this. And then you need to get this all into your platform of choice. In this example, it's ServiceNow, so that it can be assigned correctly to CIs, so that you can take action, so that you can open tickets, so that it can go through the incident problem change process, so you can build your knowledge base the next time this happens. There's a lot of use for this data, but you can see there's a lot of things that have to happen first. Another way to look at this is through transaction monitoring or end user experience. This can be done either with really tracking what your end users are going through, or something called a synthetic transaction, where I record a transaction. Say I'm Amazon, I'd order a book on Amazon, and I'd have that order placed from places all around the globe. And then I can set thresholds that say, if it takes more than 1 second at this stage or that stage, I want an event. So there are two different ways of looking at it. To truly be effective, you really need to do what I'm calling holistic monitoring. You need to do this all at the same time. Now I'm understanding where I have a slowdown, and I'm understanding why I have a problem. This is how I get that view. So let's take a look at an example of how this would fit in our previous use case. Now I've got some monitoring in place. Events take place. Now they're being assigned correctly in the CMDB and displayed correctly in the service map. Now a ticket gets opened because the help desk technician really has consolidated data to work with, and since they kind of can get to the bottom of what's going on, they call the one person that needs to fix it. This can all be reported on. It's much more streamlined, much easier. Now this is the Nirvana slide. This is where I think we all would like to get someday. The event happens, the ticket is opened, the right person is called, and now we're using basic orchestration, and they go out and fix a pre-built fix for this problem. They run a run book. Taking that even one step further, you can report on it. Everything is done automatically. I apologize, the Nirvana slide is right here. This is where it all just happens on its own, right? You've got the events that come in. It goes through a rule base. We're going to talk a lot about that pretty soon. The ticket is opened. It knows what to do. Takes human intervention out. Problems fixed. Tickets closed. You can report on all of this. So this is where, and very few people get here, to be honest, but this is kind of the ultimate goal of tying event management into automation. And obviously, I'm not talking about the ticketing process, incident problem change that this would all be feeding as well. So where does BigPanda fit? Right here. It is the piece that does all the hard work of taking all of this data, this massive amount of data, and getting it into one place in a usable format that isn't overwhelming and helping you get to the point where you know what you're fixing. So I'm going to hand this off now. Assaf, it's up to you. Go ahead. Take it away.
Thank you, Robert. So let me, hey Robert, can you give me ownership of the presentation?
Jeff will do that.
Hey Jeff, do you want to give me ownership? There we go. Thank you, sir. So thanks, Robert. I'll talk about where exactly BigPanda fits into that food chain. I'll do a brief introduction on kind of who we are, what our mission is, and then go into more depth around exactly what you were talking around how do you turn that underlying messy, heterogeneous, fast-moving data into workflows that human beings can understand and eventually automate. So our mission in life is really to think of, there's two tectonic plates that are crashing into each other. There's ITOM and there's ITSM. ITOM is how do I manage all of my data center, and ITSM at a very high level is how do I manage the human workflows of managing my IT stack. And a lot of our customers are coming to us and say, hey, on the ITOM side, my both infrastructure and my software and how I manage those have fragmented, have scaled, have become much more agile. And all of those are good things because it's letting IT move its core purpose from being just an engine of uptime and service reliability to also being an engine of agility and the ability to move as fast as a digital enterprise needs to move these days. But guess what? That's causing unintended consequences because it's bumping up against my current my ITSM work cases. And I'll walk you through kind of the history of what that looks like. So think of on the ITOM side, a lot of companies are waking up to the fact that, hey, I'm a software company today, or I'm a services company today, and the pace at which I can evolve that service or that software offering is a real competitive advantage. And part of doing that is around automating all of the IT infrastructure that supports that software and that service. And that's really, call it, some major sea changes that have happened over the last 15 years around that ITOM stack. And what does that mean? It means on my software side, as an organization, I'm trying to move away from these monolithic applications where I do deployments once a quarter or once every half year, and move it much more towards a microservices infrastructure where it's a lot of smaller modules that can move around much more dynamically, moving away from quarterly releases towards the CI/CD approach of releasing code once every 2 weeks, once a day, or 57 times a day. And a lot of time and effort and money have been spent by organizations to evolve the agility of my software development cycles. Same thing has been happening on my infrastructure side. So companies are waking up to the fact that, hey, I don't have 500 servers in my basement nowadays where I have to physically move everything around. I've got thousands or tens of thousands of VMs. They're spread across multiple clouds, both public and private. I'm experimenting with containers. I'm orchestrating all of that through some kind of automated orchestration software. And all of that's been a very, very good thing, both on the software side and the infrastructure side, because it's let IT be an agent of agility. And that's very important for the bottom line of the business. But guess what? What hasn't automated is that last leg of managing that IT stack, which is service assurance. It's still this very, very manual process, typically of putting a bunch of NOCs in a room and looking at 15 different dashboards, or maybe those 15 different dashboards are auto-creating tickets in ServiceNow. In any case, your human beings will never be able to scale as much as the amount of information that's coming out of an automated software in an automated infrastructure environment. And that's where we really come in. We're saying the orange and the blue stack is all of the automation that's been going on in your ITOM environment, and it's really crashing up against the limits of the human scalability from your ITSM tools. And let's double click on what that looks like. So, when you look at service automation, think of a kind of a very traditional legacy incident management stack. So you had, your typical legacy vendors, and they said, hey, we're going to sell you 80% of the infrastructure and the software orchestration tools. On top of that, we're probably going to sell you some kind of monolithic monitoring tool that gives you A to Z monitoring from network to compute to storage to application and all the rest. On top of that, we're going to give you some kind of event correlation tool, whether it be IBM NetCool or HPOMI and the rest. And then we're probably going to give you some kind of ticketing and workflow ITSM solution. And that is a very typical stack of 20 years ago. But what's happened in the last 20 years? Well, a lot's been happening in the stack. So first of all, everything on the infrastructure side has radically changed. From, like we said before, virtualization to microservices to containers to automation on both the software and the infrastructure side, to the fact that all of this is not being stored on-premise but in the cloud. Radical sea change, and tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in money that's been disrupted, and a lot of time and effort in mainstream organizations to keep up. The next thing that's been disrupted on the ITOM side is, hey, that monolithic monitoring suite from HP just doesn't cut it anymore to help me see what's really going on in my 15 different silos of my stack. And so as a result, what's happened is you've seen a sea change in the monitoring tools that people are using. And so instead of using one piece of monitoring tool from HP, I might be using SCOM for system monitoring, or AppDynamic for application monitoring, and Splunk for logs, and Graphite for metrics, and so on and so forth. And the last change that's seen is you're saying, hey, I've moved to some kind of modern workflow solution. In many, many cases, it's ServiceNow, which is still an ITSM solution. It's bringing all of the unit economics and the versioning and the agility of a modern SaaS application. And in some places, it's even more simple tools like Slack or PagerDuty or whatever the case. Now, the one stack that's been missing here is event correlation, because there has not been an offering that, as your infrastructure has fragmented, as your monitoring tools have fragmented, has been able to keep up and turn all of that machine data into insights that a human being can understand. And so what does that mean? It means that if you're not in the Tier 1 service assurance team and you show up to work, whether you're looking at a bunch of screens or whether that's all feeding into ServiceNow, what you're really seeing is something like this. You're showing up to work, you've got anywhere from 1,000 to 100,000 different alerts from 15 different screens. Each one of those alerts is giving you really good insight into what's happening into a specific layer of your stack. But to get the holistic view around what's going on with a business service that I care about, or what's going on with a customer that I care about, or what's going on with an SLA that I care about, you have to do a lot of digging and connecting the dots. And we're hearing from a lot of our customers, hey, the size of my NOC has doubled or tripled over the last few years, but the amount of information they need to process has not doubled. It's gone up by orders of magnitude. And so on the one hand, my headcount is out of control. On the other hand, my SLAs and my service reliability is worse than it's ever been before, because we just can't keep up. And what we're saying, what BigPanda is coming and saying is, if you're going to automate that last leg of data center automation, which is service assurance, what you need is to bring back into that incident management stack a layer of event correlation that can take all of that heterogeneous, siloed, high-volume data, normalize it, correlate it, turn it into, hey, Mr. or Mrs. IT, You don't have 70,000 alerts from 15 distributed systems. You have a handful of business services that are in real trouble. That issue might have hundreds or thousands of underlying symptoms, but you don't need to be a data scientist to figure that out. And that's what we do really, really well. And we really try to be that bridge where this new ITOM stack is crashing up against this ITSM stack. And ITSM, when I say ITSM, I really mean the limits of human scalability to understand and process all this data. So what BigPanda does is we say, hey, feed us all, we're this layer that says feed us all of your monitoring information. And that's all the red and the green alerts on the left. And the first thing we do, we make it very, very easy to connect that into BigPanda. And before we do any kind of data science and statistical analysis and correlation, first thing you have to do is normalize all those data sets into one consistent model. Because you have Splunk and SCOM and AppDynamics speaking about relatively the same things, but they're all speaking radically different languages. Today, the burden is on a human being in their mind to connect those dots. But at scale, obviously, that doesn't work. So we do that in an automated fashion. Once we've flattened out all of those disparate data sets, then the hard work of how do we bring data science to bear to correlate events and reduce that noise by typically 90 to 95%. And the outcome of that is threefold. So the first value prop we try to bring is detection. So I want to quickly detect where I have issues. And that obviously comes to bear that if I can come to work as a NOC, and whether I'm seeing this in ServiceNow or on a NOC kind of war room dashboard, if I can see 39 real incidents instead of 3,000 low-level alerts, obviously that mean time to detection goes way, way down. And if I can also automatically attribute that to which CIs or which business services are being affected, all the better. And that's really kind of the heart and soul of BigPanda, is how do I cut through the noise, help me detect those issues. Now, the second value prop of BigPanda is around triage and understanding. So you've reduced my time to detection. Thank you very much, BigPanda. Now I want to be able to triage this issue. I want to understand how is it affecting my critical business services, why is it happening, and what should I do about it. And that information lives in a lot of other places in the guts of my institutional knowledge. It may live in the form of metrics. Many organizations have hundreds of thousands of metrics that may or may not be relevant for a specific incident. It lies in my CIs that are buried in my CMDB. It lies in recent changes, whether developers made some kind of code push or someone in IT made some kind of unauthorized change and now it's having unexpected consequences. I want to be able to know that. It lies in my run book. And today, someone in the NOC has to do a lot of work once they've detected that issue to find and gather all that secondary data to be able to assess impact and remediation path. And part of what we say when we say correlation is not just correlate all those alerts into high-level incidents, but correlate all of the secondary data so you can very, very quickly get that kind of situational awareness. And then the last thing we do is collaborate. So if you are like News Corps, who is a ServiceNow customer, how they work is they say, hey, we don't want to auto-create tickets into ServiceNow. What we do is instead of having 15 dashboards, we just use BigPanda as our workbench for the NOC. And if we can remediate something right away, great. But if we have to escalate it to someone else in the organization, then we create that ticket into ServiceNow. And once they've used BigPanda to create that ticket into ServiceNow, obviously all of that information that I just talked about around historical knowledge and metrics and code deployments and runbooks is automatically updated into that ServiceNow ticket. And more importantly, that ServiceNow ticket is kept updated in real time as the underlying events continue to escalate. And the other way people use us is more like Gap. So Gap, both on the retail side and on the e-commerce side, says, hey, we've standardized on ServiceNow as our NOC dashboard. The problem is we've got all these underlying monitoring tools creating thousands of tickets in ServiceNow every day. So what we do there play in that situation very nicely as well. So we correlate those underlying alerts by 95% into incidents. We enrich those incidents with all of that information around recent changes and metrics and all the sort, and we automatically create a ticket in ServiceNow, populate it with the appropriate CIs, send it on its way. But very importantly, again, when you have problems, when you have an alert storm, those underlying alerts are moving very, very quickly. And any ITSM tool was built for workflow consumption. It wasn't built to have a really tight handshake with your ITOM monitoring tools. And that causes a lot of friction because if someone in the NOC has escalated an issue at 10 a.m. but only at 1 p.m. did the Tier 2 or Tier 3 person open up that ticket, well, guess what? That incident looks radically different. And today in ServiceNow or any kind of workflow tool, they're completely divorced from that last 3 hours of what's been happening. And one of the nice things that a lot of customers like about BigPanda is, yes, we can open up 95% less tickets. And so you're only seeing real live outages, but that ticket is now a living, breathing manifestation of what's going on in your ITOM stack. And that's really, really important to our customers. And that, in essence, is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make your ITSM tool, specifically ServiceNow, really work hand in glove with your modern ITOM stack. And that's at a high level what we do. So Robert and Jeff, I think I've talked enough. I'm happy to answer any questions and dive into more detail if appropriate.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Assaf. So I'm going to give this back to Robert. And there we go. And I think Robert has a few closing remarks. Robert, are you there?
Helps when you unmute. Yep, I'm here. Thanks for handing it back. Thanks for the presentation. And I got to say, we're thrilled to be a partner with BigPanda. I think it's an amazing fit for what we're trying to accomplish with our IT operations management practice. Where do we come in? What do we do? First of all, everything we do is process-based. We have people that are specialists in all different kinds of process standards. And what we really do is we come in and we consult. We try to figure out where you're trying to get to, make suggestions on maybe a little better of where to go, and then how to get there. We base this, of course, on using ServiceNow as the platform, integrating your cloud and non-cloud, and all these other things that Assaf just talked about, and leveraging your folks, their experience. And this is all about making you successful. And of course, this is where BigPanda comes in, and the money's there because it's going to save you a lot of time and money. Real quick, what would you do next? I would say give me a call, give us a call. This is my information. You can find us on the web at alcortech.com. Love to see what we can do to help you along your IT operations management journey and make you successful. Thanks for joining us, and I'll hand it back to Jeff.
All right. Thank you very much, Robert. We do have a few questions. We'll get to in a moment. As a reminder, please use the question section to ask any question on today's topic. Let's see here. So first question, great information. Who do I call to find out more, to get more information? I guess you've already answered that one, haven't you, Robert?
I've answered that, but I think you could go either way. Give me a call. Anything ITOM related, but just as easily, the BigPanda website has a lot of information too on all of this, as you saw, so we're here to help.
Okay, good. And then I need help understanding what I have and how this all fits together. Can Alcor help me with this?
So short answer to that's yes. That is exactly what we want to do.
Okay, so again, just contact you or a representative from Alcor. Okay, cool, and doesn't look like there's any new ones, so one last question. Do I have to be a huge environment to take advantage of all of this?
Not really. You know what, Assaf, you want to field that one?
Sure. So, you know, we really add value where you have problems of complexity and fragmentation. And you know, you don't have to be a Fortune 50 company to have these problems today. So, you know, in a modern environment where a lot of your complexity is in the cloud, you can be a relatively medium-sized company and still say, hey, we are moving very quickly, we're making use of modern tooling, cloud, open source, microservices, and the rest, and our people can't keep up. So, you know, you'll know if you have the pain, because you'll live it and you'll have a hard time keeping your services at the SLA you want them to. If you don't have that pain, then you have your answer. But if you do have that pain, whether you're big or small, you need these kinds of solutions.
Okay, awesome. All right, well that's it. Let me just double check the question window. And there is nothing new, so excellent. Thank you very much, guys. The recording of today's webinar will be available on our website, www.alcortech.com, and on our social networking sites. Thanks, everyone, for joining. See you at the next webinar.